in the form of our confession. This is where it came from, and I've been holding that up as a kind of template against which we might sort of compare or assess what's happening in our country right now. And so, but I mean, where do I go with this? Shout out. Do not hold back. Lift up your voice like a trumpet. Announce to my people their rebellion, to the house of Jacob their sins. Day after day they seek me and delight to know my ways, as if they were a nation that practiced righteousness. Okay. Text 1. And then you've got Jesus. Let your light so shine before others that they may see your good works and give glory to God. Now, are these the two? Are these the same thing? Are these the same thing? I don't think so. I don't think so. And it's a measure of sort of the energy that surrounds American politics right now, and the how loud the voices are everywhere around the world in response. I'm in that situation, as are all of us. And one of the things that I am really, I may be committed to above all, is that we have become a community that can acknowledge differences among us, and yet we stay in community and we understand that we love each other. And I will fight pretty hard not to let division tear our congregations apart, because I think we think differently about issues, and those issues are being put to us in, like I say, a very energetic way. And there is a particular style of community that is being raised up right now, and it is, I think, very dangerous to us. The spirit of demonizing those who disagree with you. And let's understand that that is a temptation that both sides are now subject to demonize those who think differently. And I'm not going to go into any of the specifics of why I personally object so deeply to the things that our president is doing and the kind of spirit with which he is conducting the office of the presidency. I simply will remind us again of some of the ways and practices that are characteristic of our Christian path. And then we are, as we are always charged to do, see the various dimensions in which our Christian path plays out, from the secrets of our own heart to the conduct of public policy and everything in between. And so, one of the maxims that guides our lives as Christians: speak the truth in love. Speak the truth in love, which means that you also must seek the truth. Seek the truth in love. We're in a different world now. There was a time, and many of us here can remember it, when a photograph was thought to be unambiguously true. That was the beauty of it. Apart from all the ways you could manipulate reality, if you take a photograph, there it is. Are you kidding? Images and words are so, the word would be plastic, manipulable. You can make anything of anything. Seek the truth in love before you speak the truth in love. seek the truth in love as to what our situation is, again, at so many different levels. And again, one of the great temptations is to allow ourselves to be hugely concerned about things that are 5,000 miles away and ignore what's right in the middle of us. And so, let's also and primarily be concerned with the health of our congregation and our individual health as we go about practicing our Christianity. Speak the truth in love. Seek the truth in love. Take the log out of your own eye first. Again, both sides. Take the log out of your own eye. I've been thinking, there's that old maxim, we see the world not as it is, but as we are. We see the world not as it is, but as we are, which is, the language changes over the centuries and millennia, but Jesus was also talking about the way our prior understanding of things, our prejudice, our assumptions cloud how we see the world. And he said, so if you're ever going to try to correct anybody or address what you think is wrong with the other person, take the log out of your own eye first, so that you can see clearly to take the speck out of your brother or your sister's eye. It's always the first step of wisdom, because we are moved by things of which we are not always aware. And Jesus says, before you try to change the world, look at yourself and really know where you're coming from. And are you really coming from a place of love? Or are you coming from a place of frustration, of fear, impatience, anger? Where are you coming from? Love your enemies. Any room for that? Any room for extending genuine love to those with whom you disagree? That, again, not to assume that any of us knows exactly what should happen, what the best things are to happen, but given the best we can understand, do you extend love to those with whom you might be in conflict, with those in a community with whom you might disagree? Love your enemies. Jesus didn't say, he didn't kind of raise up a lot of exceptions. Love your enemies unless things get really tough, unless they're really bad, unless they're really mean. No, he says love your enemies. And remember, Jesus grew up in a time of great political instability, where despotic kings were coming in, and if Nazareth was kind of troublesome, well, he just killed everybody. Jesus was not raised in an atmosphere of tranquil government. He was raised in an atmosphere where everybody, or many people, were saying, let's be violent, let's go to war, let's fight the Romans, let's restore ourselves. And Jesus really was rather above that. He did not participate or buy into or encourage the rising tensions that were there. He spoke of a different way. And so he said, take the log out of your own eye. If the soldier says carry his pack, carry it an extra mile. And of course people, in a sense, hated Jesus for this because he wasn't strong enough. But again, the Christian way is a funny thing to practice. It's always been a funny way to practice because it asks us to do things that are so counterintuitive. Love your enemies. Well, I don't love my enemy. I want to fight my enemy. And Jesus says that won't get you anywhere. It'll just keep things going just like they are. A couple things from Corinthians I just want to highlight. A phrase was used, the spirit of the world and the spirit that is from God. The spirit of the world, and when the New Testament uses world, remember, it is not talking about creation. It is talking about the world of culture, of the human values and the way they are structured and institutionalized in the world. So the spirit of the world, let's just say, for economy's sake, it tends to be collective, big mass. Everybody sort of acting together in a psychology that often approaches that of a mob. And it tends to be unconscious. Whereas the spirit that is from God tends to make us into responsible individuals. And it tends to say, wake up, get more conscious of what's actually going on. Ask more penetrating questions. Wake up. Again, not presupposing what you will see when you wake up, but just don't allow yourself to get carried away by great currents of feeling and energy. That's a current that should be resisted. Stand on your own 2 feet, ask your own questions, wake up. And then the last thing, we have the mind of Christ, which is a text that you can go for years on in terms of sort of mystical participation in the life of God. But it's also an interesting, at least to me, interesting sort of word study, because the New Testament uses a bunch of different words for mind. And when in the word for mind here is nous, and it suggests sort of the spiritual center. It's, as the term is so often used now, to be mindful, to be really and fully conscious and attentive. And nous has that quality. But when we hear in the Gospels, love the Lord your God with all your heart and soul and mind and strength, doesn't use nous there. It uses the Greek word dianoia, which means think it through. Think. We are rational creatures, and our reasoning capability, at least in some circles, is disparaged sometimes. And Jesus says, use your human qualities to enter more deeply into reality with your heart and soul and your capacity to reason. Think about what is going on. Think about what is going on. That shouldn't sound like a radical prescription, but it kind of does. Love your enemies, take the log out of your own eye, get conscious, ask your own questions, think things through, and understand that the atmosphere right now is full of temptation. Temptation to act, again, as I say, out of frustration, out of fear, out of anger, out of impatience. And God is not served by any of those things. When Jesus says, let your light shine, that is not look at me and what I'm doing. It's about being honest. It's about being honest about what you actually love.